Hey there, we are back with Green Mountain Mornings on KVT Talk, where Brattleboro listens. I'm your host, Olga Peters. It's about 20 minutes past the top of the hour. Hello, Harmony Birch. How are you this morning?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm so glad you're here. I'm doing well. I enjoy talking local news with you. And hey, you know what? I'll even turn your microphone on so people can hear you.
Wow, thanks.
And you've been busy at the Reformer lately. Not that you're not always busy, but really busy these past couple weeks. It's been quite the news round in Windham County.
Yeah, May always has a bunch of news all at once.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's the summer, like the sun coming up. I don't know. Events happen, and then crazy things happen.
Yeah, I think we've all been dormant and not wanting to leave the house because the weather's bad. And now it's like, let's come out and play. I just saw Bob Audette's update on the robbery suspect who's up in Dartmouth right now, as far as we know, in stable condition. And he was recently shot by Brattleboro police.
Yes, 3 of them and a state trooper.
Wow. And he's being suspected of stealing from multiple stores in New York as well as Vermont.
Yes, and he's also robbed banks allegedly in Tennessee and various other states. So it's not just regional. He's traveled his way all the way up to Texas to Vermont, and now he's staying in Vermont for now.
And do we know why? Was he trying to get to, like, robbing his way to Canada, or?
I don't know why. I don't know if anyone else knows why yet, because I've been off these 2 days. So Bob's covering the court case that's following him. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, Bob did, in his article that came out this morning, note that the robber is being charged on federal charges because he has stolen through so many states. And sorry, his name is Mark Triolo, correct, of Texas?
I've been saying Triolo, but I don't think that's right. We'll go with Triolo.
Okay, we'll go with Triolo. And yeah, so that cross state lines is not necessarily how you want to do your robbing spree because the fines and the charges tend to go up.
Yes. One of the most interesting details I remember from covering it, because this was an all-day event on Saturday, was when he robbed a convenience store up north from us. It was a Sunoco. And when he did it, he opened the door for the clerk to, like, walk in. And I don't know, that was just such an interesting detail. Like, it kind of showed a sort of humanity that we weren't seeing yet. It's also should be noted, too, when the police found the gun in his car, it was a BB gun, essentially, and it wasn't loaded.
See, that is an interesting detail because that can actually change the charges.
Yeah.
Whether or not you were carrying a true weapon or not.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, do we know, I mean, this is an ongoing court case, so do we know yet about next steps or?
For him?
Yeah.
I'm not sure yet. Bob wrote about the federal charges, so I assume that's what's going on. I talked to Tracy Shriver a little bit about next steps for the police officers, and I'm not sure where they are on that yet. They released the names pretty early in the investigation, which was big, and I wonder if there were a lot of media outlets on this case because he has robbed from so many places, so I wonder if that was partly pressure from multiple media outlets, but I don't know.
Well, and I'm sure, too, while he was in the woods when they found him, he had parked in a residential driveway.
Yes.
Which ups the ante for a lot of people, too, just in the safety factor.
Yes. I did talk to one witness on Friday night, and she kind of embodied that sort of being scared, like that sort of non-safety feeling that she had. And she I don't know if the police were actually on her property or if they were just nearby. I know they went to various properties to follow him. But when the shots happened, she felt like they were really close. And she thought she could see the flash from the gun. And she talked about how scary it was for her. And she's a mother, and she talked about how scary it was for her child, like how he was all shooken up, and they called 911, and they were like, are we safe? And 911, I don't know what they told them, but she said she wasn't really sure after talking to 911 whether or not she was safe. So I think it definitely caused quite an uproar within that community.
Well, as folks we'll just remind folks that this is an evolving news item, and so the details we have today might change.
Yes.
Tomorrow. Have you heard from anyone in the municipality yet about will the town be taking any action? What's the police department's actions? Anything like that?
I have not. No, I don't know. I didn't think to ask anyone in the town when I was covering it. I don't know if Bob or Chris did either. So I don't know. I guess we'll have to look into that.
Just me being curious. No right or wrong there. But I do know that safety around the police and firearms has been a discussion in the community before. So I didn't know if this had raised anything to the surface. It's just me totally being curious.
I've seen a lot of Facebook comments.
I bet you have.
From both sides, kind of arguing that the police shouldn't have shot, and people arguing that the police did the right thing. He did it when the police, according to the police, when he was approached by them, he wasn't responsive. He didn't do as he was told. And it sounds like that's when the shooting happened. They did think he was armed. There's various images of him, various footage of him with guns, and reports from people who have been robbed that he had a gun. So I don't know. But he wasn't armed when they shot him. So I don't know.
Well, and I know I already said that this is an evolving story, and so details will come out. But, just going back to the Facebook post, it's very interesting. I think it's still too early to know if people acted correctly or not. It's just too early.
Yeah.
And
because we don't have all the details. Right. I don't know if the police have all the details.
Probably not, actually. and the court is still building all its details, and there's a lot to be said. It looks like we are getting a phone call.
Oh, wow.
Hello, this is Olga Peters on WKVT. You're on the air.
Hi, I just thought I'd let you know that according to various news sources out there, the 3 officers from Brattleboro have been placed on administrative leave while the shooting is investigated, and that's entirely standard procedure. But what that brings home to me is that these are 3 police officers who will not be on the street in Brattleboro while this investigation goes on, and it's not like we have hundreds of cops in the department. So it considerably diminishes the amount of law enforcement available on the streets of town.
That's a good point. That is something to consider. And I'm so sorry, sir. Your voice sounds very familiar, but I don't recognize.
No, it's Gene. I'm the guy who calls.
Hey, Gene. Of course you're the guy who calls. I'm so glad you did.
Okay, just thought I'd fill that in there.
I'm glad you did. Thank you so much, Gene.
Okie doke. Have a good morning.
Yes, Gene, he is the guy who calls, and he's wonderful, and he always gives us great comments, so I appreciate that. But that is something to think of in the big picture, that, it does diminish the staff available to deal with other incidents right now.
Yeah, that is something. I hadn't thought about that. I wonder how many police are on in Brattleboro.
I have been told, and I don't remember, but we have to go to commercial break. So actually, while we're on commercial break, I'll look through some of my notes and see if I can grab that information quickly.
Okay.
We're back. This is Green Mountain Mornings on KVT Talk, where Brattleboro listens. I'm your host, Olga Peters. I have Harmony Birch from The Reformer in the studio with me. And I forgot to mention in the previous section that this hour is being filmed by Brattleboro Community Television. Will be rebroadcast later as Green Mountain Mornings Tonight, which is sponsored by Brattleboro Savings and Loan. So thank you, folks. We just want to touch base on a conversation we were having in the top of the hour around the robbery suspect that was shot by police on Saturday. And a caller called in and talked about, with 3 people on administrative leave, that reduces the number of officers available to deal with other issues in town. So Harmony and I just went online, and right now the force is at about 21 people. Harmony?
Yeah, 22 if you count the chief.
If you count the chief. And the officers who were put on administrative leave?
So Sergeant Chase Stanley, Officer Michael Cable, and Officer Sean Willer. And it's Sean Wilson. And there was a trooper, Jason Lingfeller from the Westminster Barracks that was also placed on administrative leave.
Thank you, Harmony. We want to move on to another issue in town, and that's about a care home that recently closed.
Yes. So Country Village Community Cares Facility is a care home in Bellows Falls, and it's going to close on July 1st. And there are a few care homes in the state of Vermont that are closing voluntarily right now, and this is one of them. This is the one in our area. Mm-hmm. It's not a huge deal, but it's kind of a big deal for people because a lot of a lot of our vulnerable population is within these care homes, and this one's closing because the manager wants to retire. But now they have to find new places for these people to live. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to find other places within the community that will be easy and accessible for friends and family to visit.
And roughly how many residents?
I believe, so it's licensed to hold 24. And the last I talked to him, which was on Tuesday, the care manager said there were still 18 remaining.
And what's unique about a care home? Is it something, as far as the state's concerned, is it different than, say, a nursing home or?
I believe in this one, there's more independent living than what would happen at a nursing home. It's a retirement and assisted living facility. So it's, I guess it's kind of similar. I'm not super familiar with nursing homes, but I think that this has, and I don't know if care home is just a catch-all. I don't know if nursing home falls into that. Mm-hmm. But I know this home, I think, is a little bit more independent.
Right. Yeah. The state, just for the sake of listeners, has different levels of care, and depending on how much medical care you provide will sometimes depend what type of license you have. And is there a reason why, even though he's retiring, no one else took over the helm?
I don't know. I don't know if he just doesn't have kids. I know his wife also owned the care facility with him, and I think she works at another care facility. I just don't think they had anyone to take over. And
so sorry, I don't remember. Was this in their own home or
no?
Okay.
No, it was not in their own home. I don't believe. But the next steps are finding things for residents, and they're really hoping that whoever buys the building, there have been a few offers apparently. He didn't tell me how many. They're hoping whoever buys the building will keep it on as a care facility.
So there's still some hope that this care home may continue. And that's really tricky, finding care homes in general in Vermont for elders, and it's kind of conundrum because we have an aging population.
Yes.
we will need more, not fewer.
We definitely will. It's also interesting because it could still remain a care facility, but in the meantime, they still have to move all the residents out. So I don't know if those residents will want to come back or.
Good point. Yeah, that's a lot of upheaval, moving out and coming back. Well, I look forward to hearing how this issue develops. What else has been on your radar?
James Eller recently announced his candidacy. And also, right after I wrote that article, Brenda Siegel,
Yes.
who is local, announced her candidacy. I don't know what we're doing about her yet, so I'm putting her on pause. I met with James Eller, though, and or Ellers in Bellows Falls. And that was a really cool experience. A group of residents gathered and they were like, this is the problem. These are the problems in Bellows Falls. And immediately they were dragging him off to the Vallis Bridge. And he was like overlooking it and being like, oh, yes, this could impact the water quality. And then we just all kind of sat down and talked about his economic policies. And I've heard Ellers kind of described, I don't actually know if he does have an endorsement from Bernie Sanders. I've heard people say that, but I don't know if that's just hearsay. But he's kind of Bernie Sanders-esque. Very all about, like, he wants to raise the minimum wage. He wants to put more money into state programs so that, and push the federal government. I don't know how much power you have to do that as a governor, but he wants to push the federal government to do the same because he believes that will take the burden off of select boards and individual taxpayers.
And yeah, this isn't his first run for governor, is it?
I don't know. I thought it was, but maybe I was wrong.
Because I remember last year there was a bit of a knockdown. He was running for a political office. And there was a bit of a knockdown drag out about his social media presence.
Really? Okay. This was before my time. I was not aware of this.
And I don't remember what political office he was running for. But he claimed there was some fake news put on his site, and other people claimed that he was using some dirty tactics.
There is actually, this is interesting, because when I was writing this article, I went back to go to his website to kind of remind myself, oh yeah, these are his talking points. And while I was writing it was most of the time it was taken down.
Huh.
Yeah, immediately after I met with him and then tried to do it, there was a broken link. And there was another site that's James for the number Ellers for government. That's this complete troll site.
Yes, that's the one people had the knockdown drag out over.
Yeah.
Yeah. John Walters at 7 Days actually did some really great reporting on that.
Okay, I'll check it out.
If people want to kind of look into it. Yeah. So that's interesting. What I liked about your article on Ellers was how people in Bellows Falls they came very prepared to tell him what they thought needed to be fixed in town. What were some of their concerns or themes?
The Vilas Bridge, and essentially, Vilas Bridge, small businesses, and then getting more state money. They don't feel they feel really overlooked by the state, even when they've had people from around Bellows Falls in places of power. They feel like they're not visited enough, and they don't feel like they're getting enough support from the state to maintain everything. I mean, taxes in Bellows Falls are really high, period. And I think a large population would be against raising taxes for the state as well. But doing that might make it a little bit easier for them because they have to pay town taxes and they have to pay their own taxes. And they're the downtown of Rockingham. So they're the ones that have to, I mean, Rockingham does also support the roads and everything, but they have to worry about that. They have to worry about there not being enough money for the roads and the sidewalks. And they have to worry about funding their own services, like the police department or the fire department.
Yeah, that is quite a conundrum. They are in a unique position in Bellows Falls, in that village. Did folks say after they met with James Ellers, did they feel that he had addressed their concerns, or that?
Most of them, I think, did. So I don't know if this was exactly for the public or if just a few people were invited. So it was a small group. And some people were definitely gung-ho, yeah, I like this guy, I'm going to vote for him. And some people were just kind of testing the waters. And some people did not stay the whole time because their lunch breaks were up. So they came in, they were like, these are our problems. If you're elected, please address them, and then left.
Was anyone interested in hearing what he had to say about his own platform?
Yes.
Okay.
So we talked a little bit. This was actually kind of spurred by me and Randy from the Commons, who were there. We talked a little bit about education funding and about the minimum wage. And then residents were like, oh yeah, this impacts me. And some people were against his ideas to raise the minimum wage. He thinks that raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour by it's 2021. Is that the number?
That sounds correct. Yes.
Yeah. Isn't enough, which, I mean, to be fair, that's a few years away, and it's barely enough to make $15 an hour now and survive the way that you should, saving what you should be saving.
Mm-hmm.
So he would like to make it a little bit more drastic, but also to phase it in. He was kind of going back and forth with a business owner about how to do that. He also talked a little bit about Act 46, which doesn't really seem to be his focus, but he talked about how he could see why people would be against consolidation, especially for elementary schoolers.
Mm-hmm.
And he spoke a lot about how we need to be funding our teachers more, because to him, as a guy that's all about putting in more government programs, he thinks schools are a great way to start raising our citizens, to start making sure that our citizens don't end up in jail or end up, making a livable wage.
He has some good points there. I think there's a lot of early educators who would agree with him on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like you mentioned Brenda Siegel. I mean, people are coming out in this election on all levels of government, left, right, and center. It's really, I think this is going to be some exciting political year.
It definitely is. I'm excited. We have our first 13-year-old running.
That's right.
And we have our first transgender woman running.
Mm-hmm.
And in addition to Brenda Siegel and James Ellers, who both have kind of, I don't know if you would call them radical, but, very leftist ideas.
Yes. And there's a new candidate. Well, David Dean is stepping down as one of our reps in Windham County, and I'll be interviewing him later this week, actually. And Nader Hassim?
I think that's his name. Yeah, I haven't talked to him yet. I've talked to, Cindy. Is that her name?
I haven't met Cindy.
Yeah, I met with Cindy the other day, so there'll be an article about that soon. I need to talk to Nadir first.
Yeah, Nadir is on my list to talk to, where we've been trying to work our schedules out. Brenda is going to be on the show probably next week to talk about her run for governor. And I have to say, personally, I think the more candidates, the better. We get to really kind of vet policy and have some great discussions around policy. The more candidates we have. I'm actually kind of tired of unopposed races.
I'm still kind of new to voting. I mean, new-ish. I'm 23, so I guess I've been doing it quite a while. But it feels new. Mm-hmm. And there's not a lot of big elections, so I'm not super familiar with unopposed candidates, I guess. But it does seem nice to have that level of choice. And it seems like every day there's somebody new announcing their candidacy. Somebody else, I think her name was Sarah, recently sent us something for some district in our area. Sarah
Kofi's running because Mike Hebert is stepping down, and she'll be running for his seat.
Oh, okay.
And then Emily Kornheiser is running, and she would be running against Valerie Stewart. As far as I know, Valerie hasn't decided to step down or retire. So it's going to be exciting, and lots of really smart people, too, which is always very exciting as well.
There'll be lots of good discussion. I'm interested to see, from what I've heard of Brenda, her policies sound very similar to James Ellers, so I'm interested to see them debate and see if they have any differences.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah. Very good point. I'm also, something that's been floating around in my mind recently, and yesterday I had a conversation with John Walters of 7 Days. He calls in every Monday. And he brought up a really good point about the way policy is being created in Montpelier right now, with this standoff between the governor and the legislature. And the governor introducing things like education reform, huge, 2 weeks before the end of session.
Oh.
That it's might be great politically, but it's not necessarily building good policy because things aren't happening out in the open and they're not being debated and vetted in an open, transparent way. And I've just had that on my mind recently because I can see, I don't know about you, but I'm seeing how politics is run in Vermont is shifting a little bit. And I'm not sure I like how it's shifting. It's feeling a little more DC style if we're going to be putting things in boxes.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, that's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So as an outsider, I knew very little about Vermont politics coming in. And I've always been astonished by how democratic it is. Not like in not in party wise, but in terms of how they do everything. It seems very transparent, and everyone's very active. And when the senators come back and the representatives, when they come back to the state, they're always talking about how great it is to see Vermont working on policy.
Mm-hmm.
And they do seem to get a lot done. Maybe I just wasn't paying enough attention to Massachusetts, but I feel like we get a lot done in Vermont.
I think you are right about that. I think I am just seeing more political games than I used to see. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. Hey, quickly before I let you go, Harmony, there was a golden ticket winner in town.
Yes.
Yeah. Tell us about that.
Okay, so there was a golden winner ticket. The golden ticket thing allows you free parking in the city of Brattleboro, or the town of Brattleboro. And this woman really deserved it. She had been waiting to win since last year. Mm-hmm. And she finally got it kind of towards the end when most of the bars have been sold. And she kind of won the silver ticket as well. Her friend won a silver ticket and then gave it to her. So she had both. Her name is Rachel Morse. She went to Brattleboro Union High School when she was younger, and she ended up getting pregnant really young and has, been kind of struggling since. But, she passed high school, and now she has this golden ticket, and a lot of good things, she says, are coming her way. So she was just through the roof excited. She's also well known in town because she does a lot of people's hair. Mm-hmm. So.
Well, congratulations to her.
Yeah, good job, Rachel.
Harmony, thanks so much for coming in today.
Okay, thank you.